credit has actually, when it has actually materialized, it's an expected credit loss. So it's a lot of that is going to happen. The CBN, according to CBN circular, it said from May, banks should start moving close to adopting it, the formula they're likely to use, and because the IFRS-9 is going to come with a lot of subjective calculations. So the CBN is trying to make sure banks adopt it properly. So it has already created a forum for them to come discuss the subjective calculations that will go into it. How best do you need to use these formulas? What best to come into it? But for the Tier 1 banks, we still believe they have sizable buffers to weather the storm. But for the Tier 2 banks are where the risk lies. Because a lot of them, if you look at the like of Sterling, if you look at the like of FCMB, the like of Diamond Bank, they're already having Tier 2 problems. And raising capital, debt capital in this current market, it's really not favorable for most of them. Our discussion with management is that, our understanding is that, so for you to even raise debt capital now is an issue for you. Given your size and the current liquidity in this market system, in the financial system, you are looking at you raising debts above what you can actually lend or manage, given what the system is. So a lot of Tier 2 banks are going to face a lot of problem with IFRS-9, but for the Tier 2 bank, for the Tier 1 banks, we believe they have the strength to weather the storm.
IFRS-9 is no prudential guidelines. It's tougher.
It's tougher.
Much tougher than prudential guidelines.
Much tougher. In an essence, it's much tougher because you're now looking at, you're giving out a loan from the point, based on your previous experience in giving such a loan, you have to make a provision to it based on that. It has two broad forms. You have the ECLs, that expected credit loss, you have the 12 months and lifetime expected credit loss. So you have to make provisions for the expected credit loss from the initial stage of you, based on your previous experience in giving such loan.
Regardless of the currency.
Regardless of the currency, you have to make provisions.
So if you're doing dollar denominated,
you have to make provisions.
Loans in the oil and gas or power sector, even telecommunications, you have to make what you call front-end provisioning from day one on your books. That's what IFRS-9 is all about.
Yeah, it's more like it's a forward-looking impairment provisioning, not when the risk has actually materialized.
Interesting. It's going to be a brand new, Happy New Year on January 1st, 2018.
But obviously, the thing about it is a one-time thing. It's not that like it's a one-time thing. You adopt it in 2018, you make those provisions. When you move into 2019, you might not need to make provisions because you have made provisions for them in the previous year. So it's not going to be a consistent thing. The risk might be there in 2018, but going into 2019, we expect it to tip it a bit.
Let's take a look at the earnings of this big five. We haven't seen first half. And I'm getting a little bit uncomfortable that by almost mid-August they haven't rolled out those numbers. And what do you think should be in the earnings vis-a-vis what the current market price of this big five is?
To an extent to calm your worries, NSC allows them, if you're auditing your accounts, it allows you 2 months after the close of the financial period for you to release your period if you're auditing it. And most of these banks are paying dividend. They're paying them dividends. So that is why you've seen a delay in their results. For Access Bank, I think it's going to be it's going to be 31st of August. Access Bank is likely to release. For the like of UBA, maybe next week, likely. But for Zenith and GTB, they usually trail each other, so it might just be towards 28, 29, so you're likely to expect that. If not next week, but if they don't do next week, 28, 29, you're likely to say that. But when it comes to earnings, we're still expecting these banks to do pretty well. Last year, most of the earnings were buoyed by what we saw, foreign exchange gains. We saw a sizable foreign exchange gain. Most banks added that, derivative gains for the like of assets. So you saw that last year. But coming into this year, we expect that to taper it a bit. We don't expect them to add so much, because the legroom for you to do a lot of evaluation gain based on your long position, it's not there anymore. The valuation was what resulted in that. But this year, we've seen the Naira kind of moderate a bit, even with the adoption of this new NAFEX market, which banks are now quoting. So we expect a lot of that to limit what they're going to have for non-interest income. But obviously, banks still have a lot of e-business income to claim, but that won't upset what the foreign exchange gains they had last year.
I'm going to try to find out where is the blue ocean for these banks.
Blue Ocean?
Blue Ocean. Where would they be making money from? And the very bad news you've just delivered, or you delivered here, was that they are not lending any longer. And everybody seems to be agreeing that banks are not lending anymore.
To an extent, you see, banks still have a lot. They lent last year, obviously. They're still getting interest from the loans they've credited previously. And for this year, you need to understand that the banks are in the business of making money to a large extent. And if looking at giving money to doing government treasuries and doing government bonds that is risky, I'm getting as much as effectively return around 22%.
The finance minister is about to spoil the party.
It's about to spoil but the party, they've enjoyed the party for the first part of the year, and they still have this interest that's going to
I'm not sure banks will be smiling at Kemi Adeosun right now.
Obviously, they won't be smiling, but still, it's still going to be a good year for the banks. If They might not be able to do it locally, but I still see the banks using their BVs and their SPVs to still buy most of these treasury bills, even if it's US denominated.
Very smart guys, isn't it?
Okay.
You put the treasury bills in dollars, right? Then they use
their foreign
SPVs.
Subsidiaries.
Then they pick it up through in dollar terms from London, wherever. Then they hold it in dollars. Then whatever gains they make, they translate it into naira. And the current exchange rate, they still make money.
They still make money.
You can't beat these banks, can you?
No.
I'm just keep thinking, these guys are smart. Everywhere in the world, banks are super smart folks.
That's why they're banks.
They never lose.
Either way the economy goes, banks are still going to be smiling.
Amazing. Perhaps I should have been a banker, but I love it in here, looking at what everybody is doing. But those of you who are very close to these banks can see that. So, on one hand, it's good business, and it's good to have your comment that we have to restructure this debt burden in the treasury bills, trillions of naira, and cut back on this nearly 20% we are paying as interest to borrow this government money back into government pockets.
Yeah, I think it's a smart thing the Federal Executive Council has actually done, trying to replace, refinance the sizable naira debt with FX funds. I think the risk around it, is just what the FX is going to look like in the next 3 years. But obviously, it's a bit of calculation. If you look at the bonds were issued around 7.8%. And we are currently issuing treasury bills around 17.6, 17 point, around within 17 to 18%. I think it's a smart thing. Even if you factor in the exchange rate risk, and you still look at it, you're still going to be on the good side if you do a treasury bill at around 8% using in FCY than you doing naira yield around
in FCY.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you very much for unpacking that, showing us where the money is. Those who will be making money under the new arrangement, and those who will not be making money. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Wilson.
We appreciate that.
Thank you for
That's Oluwasegun Akinwale, who is the research analyst in charge of financial services at Kodros Capital. Let's come back after the break. You want to have a handshake with Ibrahim Magu, the acting chairman of the EFCC. If you're in Lagos today and you are around the Central Business District, the stock exchange is the destination. On the 8th floor, I'm giving you the address. You may just have to walk in there between 2 and 2:30 and have a handshake with him. He's the one ringing the closing bell.